disruption is about embracing your authentic self. And I think for me, you know, connecting with being that authentic self has enabled me to excel, because I believe people have respected me more because they know what they're dealing with. You know, you may not like it.
So much energy built up that I just need to just
If I try
shake
to
it
get
out.
loose,
Yeah.
yeah, shake it
So
out, yeah.
yeah, so before we're having this recording, I was listening to some dancehall.
Oh wow, dance
Yeah.
hall. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
listen to some dancehall because I needed to
okay,
get my head in that zone type of
okay.
thing. So yeah, so
Did
thank
you
you,
don
thank
your little
you.
multicolored wig and stuff as well? Did you
In
have a
it,
red one?
listen, back in the days, I've got some pictures, man. Seriously, sequins and all of that. Thank you, Kevin. I say this to everybody, and when I get to see you face to face, is eyeball to eyeball.
Mhm.
Thank you, yeah, for your time, your energy, and just sharing space with me.
No problem. That was a little intense, but thank you. It's well received. Eyeball
Isn't
to
it?
eyeball, and yeah,
In an
yeah.
eyeball to eyeball, but you understand what I'm saying to you when it comes to
No, I do.
eyeball to eyeball.
Always good to be starting and being a part of something epic, you know?
Of course.
Legendary legacy. This is about legacy. So glad that I'm a part of the journey.
Thank you. So who is Kevin J. Brazant?
Oh, who am I? Wow, that's quite a boy. Wow, you just gone straight in there, Sophia. So I don't know, it's quite interesting because when people ask me that, it depends on how you choose to show up in the space. Do you understand? And I think, there are multiple aspects of our beings and who we are. And for me, I have so many interests and so many things that I'm involved in. So I think a lot of people will recognize me in a range of different places and spaces. Largely for me, education is something that I'm very passionate about. So I would see myself as a bit of an educator, a disruptive educator at that. I do like to flip the script on a lot of learning and a lot of educational processes, both in formal education and outside of that, particularly with family and children. I'm the one that kind of embodies learning. I'm that bit of that clown, which I think people recognize in terms of my personality. I can have a lot of fun as well. So I'm serious about life, but I don't take myself too seriously, if that makes sense. So I find myself to be one that's wedded to education and being disruptive in education. I'm very much passionate as a father. I'm passionate around fatherhood and themes around family as well. That's something that I'm really, really interested in. And also, in addition to that, I really like storytelling and telling good stories. That's something that's always got me by reading, listening, engaging with powerful stories of all levels. So I'm very much into film and storytelling as my background is in digital media. So as I'm sure as we will talk and develop, more and more will come out about myself and people get to understand who I am and where I come from.
Let's dive into your early years. What was, the life of Kevin growing up? What was your home
Yeah,
like?
look, I mean, my home life was blessed. I gotta say, I had no complaints being a child growing up. It was when I left the home and went into school, that's when it became a problem. When I started interacting with education and other people. Before then, I'm an only child, so I don't have any other siblings, but I have loads of cousins. So I grew up very much with cousins around similar ages. So although I didn't have siblings, they were my siblings, running around and playing with them and chilling. So my childhood was absolutely blessed. I describe it as milk and cookies. I was one of those children that I was slightly chubby, slightly obese by today's standards, I would argue, based on the sugar intake. I love my food. Mum loved to spoil me. Very rarely got told no, to be honest. I usually got what I wanted. So I was sport rotten. Loved the attention, loved being out there. I'm born in August, so I'm a Leo baby. So I love taking center stage. And childhood was one of fun, jokes, laughter, cracking my parents up. cracking up my aunts, my uncles, my cousins. So that very much was a blessed, like I said, blessed childhood in terms of my family context. Yeah, it was really good. I think for me, like I said, I struggled a bit when I went into education. That's when the challenges started.
I grew up in Hackney, just like yourself, and
Mm.
my mum said, "Oh no, you're not going to go to a school in Hackney."
For me, my story is a bit different because, like you, I was told you ain't going to school in Hackney. You got to come out. So I went to school in Islington. So it's a school called George Orwell. It's now called Islington Arts and Media now, I think is what it's called. But it was all good for the first couple of years, and then they started shutting down other schools in the neighboring boroughs. So we ended up with all the riffraff, and the school just became mashed down. To be honest, to be brutally honest, we all sorts of madness was happening to the school. It appeared, I mean, I dare I say this, because this is the background, but it's the reality. There were issues, multiple issues for students, for kids, for families. We talk about cost of living crisis now, but I think the challenges are a bit different then. And I think as a boy, especially as a boy child, you're often being tested. Your peers are testing you. And I'm sure you can relate to this, right? Growing up, when you was in the class and you was in school, you had different types of characters. You had different people. You had the so-called bad man who everybody was scared of. Yeah, this was the guy that was the toughest, exudes masculinity. Yeah, right. Was the one that was maybe normally one of the biggest kids in their year and was able to impose themselves at will, right? You had people who were there. You had the sweet boy who used to get all the girls, who all the girls used to like and used to check for and was running after. You had the joker. You had the person who's there that was always cracking jokes, laughing at everybody else's expense. That was kind of where I fitted in, to be honest, right? That was my category. I often was the guy that engaged with school, was there on time, but in terms of my peers, was the one cracking jokes and laughing at everyone else. Do you know what I mean? People threatening to beat me up and that, and me running from them and laughing at them as they try.
You said that you struggled at school, but you done so well in higher education. So, what was a path that was forged for you?
I think, it really depends on what one categorizes as well, yeah, or
Mm.
doing well. And I think success is subjective, yeah. It depends on how people see success. Was I that flying student, A star? But no, I wasn't. I'm gonna keep it real. I wasn't that guy. But I got through GCSEs, did my A levels. I did everything back to back. So I did my GCSEs, went to sixth form, did my A levels, progressed into university. And at uni, I did all right. I didn't get a 2-1 or a first, but I did quite decently. I did cool. But to be honest with you, there were some kind of personal factors that had impacted on that at the time. So my mum and then my grandfather had passed away whilst I was studying, which unfortunately is a reality for a lot of students and a lot of people today. So for me, that was hampered by that, and perhaps maybe different circumstances, the degree would have been different. But do you know what? I think the thing for me, what was really separating this notion of, being successful in terms of grades versus, getting on in life and thriving. I think as an only child, right, you have to learn some skills. And you don't, because they say, especially when you look at child development, right? People have their siblings, you get an early break in the game in trying to navigate, negotiate, speak, debate, manipulate, you know, run, hide, do whatever you need to with your siblings. Whereas as an only child, there's very little chances for that in the immediate family home. And for me, I think you had to learn skill. I had to learn skills quick, man. I needed to know how to communicate, how to speak to people, how to one of a better word at a younger age, almost I use the word manipulation, but I mean you had to get what you wanted, man. I wasn't that guy that could say, "Oh, I'm gonna get my big brother to come and do you something," or call someone to come and defend me. I had to be very smart with the way that I handled conflict and situations, yeah. But I think that all helped me to progress and get me to where I am now. I think for me, people have seen me to be quite a bit of a character in terms of when they speak to me. And I think more about what you know, I've really realized it's always been about who you know and how you show up in the mind and the imaginations of people? How do people remember you? What kind of impression do you make on people? Yes, what you know is important, but you could be the smartest person in the room, but no one likes to know it all, or some arrogant, pompous person who can't even relate on people to people on a level. So I think my social skills and my emotional intelligence was always sharp at a young age, knowing how to read the room, knowing when to talk and when not to talk. You know, these are the kind of knowing when to puff up your chest and be assertive and when to just chill and relax. I think these are skills that, unfortunately, in this day and age are in short supply. We talk a lot about IQ and then EQ, but I think with emotional intelligence, it's really lacking today. But I think to me, or for me, I should say, that's what was really important and helped me to get through, in addition to having a real appetite and a love for learning. And I actually didn't engage with that properly in a formal sense until I did my master's. That was much later. So I kind of, in the higher educational system, for anyone who's listened has been through it, you're really taught how to regurgitate information. It's just, we're going to tell you what we want you to know and then tell us back what it is, so we make sure that we hear that what we've shown you is the same as you understand it. And that's not learning, man. That's memory tactics. That's being able to recite and memorize things. Whereas when I got in to do my master's, that's when the game changed for me, because that's when in my opinion, I thought critical. I always had critical thinking, but I was really able to exercise it in an educational context and an academic context. But I'd always been doing it outside of education anyway. But that's where I think the excelling factors come from, as you noted.
I love that. So going back to being an only child, and you said
Mm.
the importance of you know, having good social skills and being paying attention to, emotional intelligence. Where did all that come from?
No, that's a great point. I mean, I need to give, mum's no longer here, but I got to give that lady her dues, because both my mum and my dad actually, I mean, my dad's still alive and he still cracks me up to this day, yeah. But with them both, learning with them was an embodied experience. And what I mean by that is, my dad did a lot through his behaviors. As we know, yeah, don't watch what people say, watch what they do. And for my dad, he in terms of working and grafting, right? My dad will argue he's not the most academic person. If you speak to him, he'll say, "Oh no, growing up, because my dad's from Barbados in the Caribbean, growing up and coming over here, I wouldn't be deemed as smart. I wasn't that academic child." No, but ask my dad about any date in history. You talk to him about anything that happened. My man can tell you what music was playing, what was in, who was in power in terms of the parliamentary group or party. He can tell you a lot. He could recite dates. My dad's just amazing like that. He could tell you what is happening, who was saying what marches took place, who was protesting, what council tax was at the time. Incredible. But yet my dad will play down this game of, "Oh, you know what, I'm not that smart." So I think definitely that ability to recite information and knowledge definitely is from my dad. Yeah. Even though he never taught me it specifically or intentionally, I watched how he moved. And anything I asked my dad about, he was more than happy to sit down and give me an answer. Whereas my mum was the complete opposite. My mum was the one that would be, "You know what, there's a book you can read for that, you know. Why don't you go and find the book? I've got the right book for you to check out and read." So my mum was that one that kind of was really giving me that independent learning. Go out, find the world. I will scaffold your learning. I will be there to clarify, to give you tips or guide you at points where you need to, but ultimately go ahead and explore the world. And another thing my mum used to do that I absolutely love her for, right? And have enough respect for her for. We used to do this thing where on a Saturday or over the weekend, she used to take me, we used to get a little scratch off ticket bus pass. I don't know if you remember those, them
I
little scratch off
do, I do,
ones, yeah.
yeah,
We
yeah,
used to
yeah,
go and get
yeah.
a little 1 day bus pass or travel card or whatever. And my mum used to take me up into central London, West End, and we used to go up there and she used to go, "Now find your way home." And my mum's like, I've got all day, I'm with you for the journey. So wherever we end up going, I don't business. I got all day. So she taught me how to navigate, travel, and she was there with me at every step of the way. And I really loved that about her. And then we got further afield, we did city breaks, we went to other places and learned how to do that. So I really respect her for that. So that independence was being developed. People teach us things in different ways, but yet again, my mum, to me, and my mum and my dad were my number one and number two scholars, you understand? But they would look you in your face now and tell you, in terms of education, I didn't do brilliantly. I don't have no letters after my name. But I tell you, they might as well have in my eyes,
Mm.
because the things that my mum and dad taught me, and like you, I'm, dare I say it, a very proud child of the supplementary school, Saturday school movement,
Mhm.
where I learned a lot about my identity and who I am, where
Mm.
we are descendants of not this slavery nonsense. I was learning about Kush and Kemet. I was learning about who I am. I'm really delving into my history and learning around abolitionists, looking at freedom fighters and activists. So that was kind of my household, you know what I mean, in terms of the books and the literature that I had available to me. And whatever I needed, my mum and dad were there to supply and provide that.
You also highlighted about um, you excelled, well, things started to change when you done your masters.
Yeah.
So, what were the things that changed for you when you done your masters?
Time when I did my master's, I was at a point, my background was in youth work. So actually, prior to that, I was interested in going into the media, doing broadcasting. I was really interested in documentary
Mm.
filmmaking. That was my thing, and feature films and acting and all that. I loved all of that. And I engaged with like, drama school and various other little opportunities to kind of further development and creative arts and all of that. And at the time, I kind of fell in love with working with young people. And that came about because whilst I was doing my degree, during my breaks in the semester, I would end up going to work with young people just to, earn whilst you learn. Yes, I was doing like youth work in the evenings and on weekends and summer holidays, and I absolutely loved it. And my work more geared towards working with young people. So at the time, my skills in creative arts and film then was used to kind of engage young people. And at that time, all young people wanted to do was be in music videos and create music. You had Channel U and all these different things that was there at the time that people wanted to jump on and develop, right? So I used my skills in digital media to kind of pivot and work towards that. And within that, I got to a point where I got really frustrated with working in youth work because I found I was becoming some glorified police officer, monitoring young people. It became more and more about monitoring, targeting bad youth or those that were seen to be troublesome or in trouble with the law. And there was something about that really was conflicting with my own values. So I didn't like that. And I said I needed to have a reset. So at that time, it was around was it 2007, 2008 when I went and I said, I'm going to do my master's. And I did my master's in applied anthropology and youth and community work. And that was partly to do with the fact as well that to earn more money in youth work, you had to get this thing called this JNC qualification. So I had to get that on top of that. So I thought, you know what, as the saying goes, I'm killing, two birds with one stone. Let me achieve this. Let me get the JNC qualification whilst rethinking. And when I did it, that was the game changer because I then was very interested in looking at Black masculinity, Black men, Black boys, and how they showed up in the criminal justice system. And because as a result of my master's and doing my dissertation in anthropology, I did a whole bit of research, a small sample study around young people that were involved in gangs or affiliated with gangs. And I was really interested in that. And from doing that, I did really well. I mean, I got a first. That's where I really was like, bam, got first class for the dissertation, the overall degree. And from that, I was like, do you know what? I'm really enjoying this. And I made such an impact from that that the lecturers were like, we need you to be a guest lecturer to come back and to teach. So that's was my introduction to the higher education system. And then the rest is history. I then kind of developed, I was a visiting lecturer. Um, then I went into areas of academic support. But something I'd noticed, definitely for young boys in particular, was this connection between young people that had a specific or a special educational needs, whether that was, diagnosed or not, to them actually then being excluded from school. So those that had that, whether that was picked up or not, there was this correlation between those that had those needs and those needs not being tended to, not doing well. It showed up in their behavior and how they showed up in class. And then that often ended up with them being excluded, then permanently excluded from the school. They ended up in something called a PRU. That just was for me the pipeline to prison. So I was very interested because then from then they started to get involved in petty crimes and crimes got a bit more serious. And then, they became career criminals, so to speak. So for me, that's something that I kind of picked up on, and I was really interested in how we understood Black men's sense of identity and self, particularly around masculinity, what it meant to be a boy and what it meant to transition to a man, and just unpacking some of that. So that became also kind of, I guess, an interconnecting theme with identity, masculinity, and me being a Black man as well. I was very interested for my own development and myself as well. And then how that was interlinked with education and how education can fail young people. And then also recognizing in myself, why is the light bulb switched on all of a sudden now that I've done the masters? What is different about that compared to my previous experiences of education that I've so fell in love with it and this appetite for learning? And ultimately, I think it's because at that level, I was really given free reign and autonomy to bring things into the curriculum. Some of my lecturers didn't really fully understand the people I was citing because they may not have been in, but they were willing to go, this is interesting. I want to read more into this or find out more about. That was a different type of energy that I got compared to, say, school.
Because you said something interesting before about regurgitation of information as opposed to being able to have that autonomy and to share your own authentic ideas. So when we're talking about your masters, you said it sort of like catapulted you to be able to share your ideas and thoughts about the topic. So what about systemic racism? Because that is what your area of work is now,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it? So would you say doing that masters was like a foundation to the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%. It definitely was the foundational principles that I built upon to get to
Mm.
kind of where I am now, most definitely. And it's interesting because you talk about the link to systemic racism, and for me, it's important for me to stress just a little disclaimer for everybody. I myself am not a race scholar. And what I mean by that is I'm not an expert or a specialist in unpacking, dismantling issues of race or racism. I'm not a sociologist in that. I lend from the ideas of sociology, psychology, anthropology, and social sciences to inform my work and what I do. But I wouldn't deem myself a specialist in that area because I think for some people, it's very quick when they see a Black man or a woman and we start talking about race, automatically you're an expert. And what often people are conflating or mixing up is that we have lived experiences of racism. Okay, we can understand it, we feel it, but sometimes to articulate it and to be able to analyze and break down what those forces are requires another skill set, yeah, and a body of skills. So for me, back to the point, the systemic racism that I'm noticing. So in my current role, I work in higher education around progression and attainment. What that basically means is I'm very interested in seeing how students, once they enter the institution, whatever course they're on, how they progress through their years and ultimately their grades that they get when they leave. What we've recognized is that there's something called the ethnicity degree awarding gap. That's just another fancy word to speak to the issue of where black children or BAME, and I hate that term because it's a catch-all term, but where racialized students compared to their white counterparts aren't doing as well in terms of obtaining and achieving good degree outcomes. Good degree outcomes are when you get a 2-1 or a first class. So what we're noticing across the country, across the sector nationally, there is a gap between white students and black students. They will have you say, or people will lead you to believe that, it's due to economic circumstances, deprivation, where people grow up, all of that. And in addition to that, it could be due to the fact that they're the first generation to go to university. They may not have had anybody, go there. There's always this deficit type of view. But ultimately, what we're seeing is that's got nothing to do with it, because there are children who have come through flying with A stars. And it's interesting because I'm looking at my son at the moment, and my son's one of those kids who, at the moment, he's in university, he's in his final year, he's studying law, right? He's going to be so embarrassed when he hears this back. He'll be like, Dad, why have you done this to me? But ultimately, I'm very proud of him. But my son far excelled in academia, far better than me. This boy in his GCSEs was getting A's, A stars, A levels, A stars. So it'd be very interesting. I have no doubt that he'll do well as well, but it's showing that this isn't about academic ability here. Yeah. What we're seeing is there's something that happens once you enter this system. Once you get into the institution, something happens that leads to them having such an experience that when they leave, they don't get the degree that they should have been predicted to get when they first started based on their abilities. So I'm quite interested in this area. Yeah, so disrupting the discourse, having courageous conversations. Sometimes the other byline is co-conspirators in creative disruption. I really love that word disruption. And the reason being is because, do you know what, Sophia? Growing up, right? When we hear the word disruptive, it's often in a negative connotation. It has negative connotations. You're the disruptive child in the class. You're making too much noise. You're doing this. But actually, disruption can be very positive as well. It leads a level of uncertainty, but I've become kind of wedded to the concepts and the ideas of disruption and what that means for people, and in particular for education. And for me, really, my whole being has been one of disruption, not whether or not I intended to or not. Wherever I went, people, whether it was people who managed me, people I worked alongside, they couldn't quite, my personality or my being was always something that kind of irked them in a way. Why? I don't know. But what I've come to realize is when, I think it was Nelson Mandela that did as part of his inaugural speech where he talked about, um, God doesn't want us to play down our skills and abilities. We're to shine our light, basically to be your authentic selves. And I think what this educational system does is it sucks the life out of you. It sucks out any agency, identity, anywhere you thought you was coming in there, thinking who you believing in who you are, you can quickly get a reality check because who you are isn't accepted 9 times out of 10 in the institution. And what I mean by that is often people have to code switch. We do it in our jobs. We're often having to switch who we are to allow other people to feel comfortable. Yeah. And I think that's one of the key issues that we face as part of that. And that's why for me, disruption is about embracing your authentic self. And I think for me, connecting with being that authentic self has enabled me to excel because I believe people have respected me more because they know what they're dealing with. You may not like it, but you know who you're getting, and people will either take it or leave it. But equally, it's been quite positive for my work as well. So that's where the disruption thing comes in.
What are the key takeaways remember about your long story short?
Wow. Wow. That's powerful. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Yeah. So take risks. Yeah. And what I mean by that, obviously calculated risks, don't go. I'm not talking about people jumping in front of buses or trying to skydive anywhere, right? But whatever it is that you're pursuing, whatever your goal, your ambition, your life dream, your purpose, whatever it is, do not wait for people to hand anything to you. Yeah, you've got to jump in. And wherever you're at, wherever you're at, it's very easy now to say, you know what, people want to pursue YouTubing or being a YouTuber or having a podcast because the place is saturated with it. But jump in. Yeah. If it's on your heart and it's something you want to do, really get involved and immerse yourself, right? Because we all have to start somewhere. But what is also equally important on top of that is to catalog the journey. Yeah. Remember where you started, where you're at, and put milestones in place. Little tick boxes, little points at the journey which you get to say, I've hit that milestone, I've hit that action. And don't stress yourself out about it. Be kind to yourself. Because you know what? Sometimes resting and taking time out doesn't mean you're quitting. Yeah. Sometimes we also have to rest. So the other thing I would say is have self-compassion. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. We all have dreams. We all have aspirations. But Rome weren't built in a day, So be kind to yourself. But at the same time, have people that hold you to account as well. So I've most probably said more than three. But for me, most definitely disrupt your own being and how you learn as well. Most importantly, check. That's the other key one. I want to say this, sorry. I'm going off on one, but you need to really think about how you learn. Because I think that's the game changer. And what I mean by how you learn, when are you most productive? Are you a morning person? Are you a night? Are you a nocturnal person? You know what I mean? Do you burn the midnight? Or everyone does things differently, but find out when you're most productive so you get into your flow state. And equally, be able to check what works for you in terms of learning as well. Make a note of, are you a writer? Do you watch? Are you visual? Do you listen to stuff? How do you retain information and are most effective? Because I think really now what most people should be learning about is how they learn. That's the key thing to help them to get by in any goals and anything that you want to achieve or execute.
Such powerful words, isn't it, Kevin? I'm so grateful and appreciative of your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sophia. It's been a blast. Thank you.